Welcome to Distress to Joyful, Bailey's Way. I'm your host, Bailey Reber, here to enlighten you and the rest of the world about one of the most misunderstood mental health disorders out there, bipolar disorder. In each episode, we'll learn more about my personal journey with bipolar 2 disorder, how I've struggled with it, and how I've learned to overcome those struggles. Together, we'll laugh, we'll cry, and most importantly, we'll have fun. You'll leave each episode feeling hopeful and stocked full of useful information on how you can better yourself and the world around you. Hello, friends! I am so happy to be back. I was sick all last week and I was traveling for work and things just did not happen the way I was hoping that they would happen. And that sucks, but it is what it is. And so I'm just happy that I am back and getting to record for you guys. I've had so much free time to think about things and I've come up with some really awesome stuff for 2023 for the new season. And I know it's only September 2022, but your girl looks ahead and loves to plan. And there's lots of really exciting things coming. And yeah, I'm just super pumped up. Speaking of being pumped up, last month, August of 2022, was the biggest month that this podcast has ever seen. It had over 1,200 downloads for the month. Woohoo! And what's awesome about that, you guys, is sure, the numbers and the stats are great and they make me feel good. But what's more important is knowing that every single one of those 1,200 downloads, that was 1,200 different people, or maybe a few of the same people hearing more stuff. But regardless, 1,200 different downloads, different times when somebody sat down and listened to this podcast and hopefully gained a positive experience or something useful that they could use for their life or to help enrich the lives of others. This entire podcast is built on positivity and hope and uplifting and sharing knowledge and understanding with other people in hopes that we can all together help make this world a better place. So whether this is your first time tuning in or you've listened to every single episode up until now, I just wanted to say thank you, because doing so is one step closer to making this world better for everybody. And that's how I view it. And I hope that's how you view it too. So thank you for being here. And I'm excited to keep going, guys. Oh, also last month we hit over 10,000 downloads for the podcast overall since it started in May of 2020, which is actually closer to 11,000 now, which is just super exciting. Again, I hope to continue to touch more lives as time goes on. And I hope that you guys share this with your friends and family and anybody else that you think who could benefit from tuning in. I know y'all are benefiting. I'm getting good feedback. So I just wanted to say thank you for being here. And once again, just send me any feedback. You can write a review on the Facebook page or on Apple Podcast, whatever. I want to hear from you, okay? So one last announcement before we move into the episode. College has started back up for me. It actually started in August, the end of August, but I'm in my second year, which would technically make me a sophomore if I were a traditional college student, but I'm not. I am doing my associate's degree, and I'm not going to be able to finish this in the 2 years that it normally would take somebody who's going to school full-time to complete. It's actually going to take me so much longer because I'm only taking 2 or 3 classes a semester. Well, I'm actually taking 3 this semester for financial aid, long story, but usually I'm only sticking with 2 because I also work full-time and do a million other things, as you guys are probably well aware of by this time. But I've chosen to discuss my journey with college as a, late 20-somethings because, guys, I enrolled in college for the first time last year at the age of 27. And I think that there is a lot of stigmas associated with people who didn't go to college straight after high school. I mean, I have received so many different types of shaming from it, whether it be from not receiving jobs because I don't have a bachelor's degree, even though I'm 100% qualified for whatever it is that I'm applying for because of my experience, or from, people looking at me and saying, oh, you didn't go to college. And they have that little attitude in their voice of like, oh, like you didn't do that? Like, oh, that's weird. Why didn't you go do that? Or what's worse, y'all, back when I was dating, long before I met Monish, I actually went on a couple first dates with guys, and these guys didn't have a second date with me because I didn't go to college, because I didn't have a bachelor's degree or something under my name. I'm dead fucking serious. Like, I remember being shamed on the very first online date I ever went on because this motherfucker, he had went to Texas A&M, and, no offense to anybody who goes to Texas A&M, but y'all are very, very prideful about college. And I didn't realize that's where he had been. So when I didn't go to A&M or I didn't have a college degree under me, literally the entire mood shifted on that date. And he started like talking to me differently and kind of more so talking down to me on things. And it just was not a pleasant experience. And that wasn't the last time I was shamed on a fucking date because I had not been to college. It's ridiculous. It is so ridiculous. Guys, had I tried to go to college after high school, I would have failed. I was not ready as an 18-year-old to dive into this. I was sure as hell not ready. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was in a different headspace mentally, and there's just no way I could have ever done it. Whereas now, I'm in my late 20s. I've had a chance to live life and experience things and actually narrow down that, yes, I want to go to school because I know what I want my career to be, and I need education to further that. So there, boom. That is why I'm going to college. Not because somebody forced me to, not because that's what everybody else does, not because that's what society or my parents wanted me to do. I'm going to college because I need it to further my career. Otherwise, I probably never would have gone, guys. Had I never figured out what I wanted to do, I might not have ever gone. And I'm bringing this up as a way to help encourage anybody who hasn't been to school, who hasn't gone to college, who might not ever go to college, to know that that's okay. You don't have to go to school to be successful. You don't. You just have to have motivation and the attitude to work hard at whatever it is that you want to achieve. But college is not always necessary. College is not necessarily what everybody needs to do, but it's something that is for everyone. So at the same time, guys, I'm going to flip the script a little bit and say, for those of you who have been thinking about going to school and you've narrowed it down and you know what you want to do and you know what you want to achieve, fucking do it. Fucking go for it. If that motivation is there, what's stopping you? Community college is cheap. That's why I'm doing it. I'm cheap. I don't like to spend a lot of money. I really don't. And so I'm at community college. That's where I'm starting. Not where I'm going to end, but it's where I've started. And so for anybody who's listening, who's been thinking about going back to school, dude, you can do it. I believe in you. And if you want to hear more about this, I've got a podcast episode. It's actually the bonus episode a couple weeks ago in this season. It's called Colleges for Everybody. Tune into that. I've got a couple different articles on my website that I'm going to leave in the show notes too. But for those of you who need encouragement to go to school, I have that for you. And for those of you who need to know that it's okay not to, I've got that for you too. We are all on our own paths in our own journeys of life, and only we know what is best for us, okay? Only we know that. Only we should be making these decisions for ourselves. So let's go ahead and dive on into today's episode. Those announcements lasted a little bit longer than what I was planning. So today's episode is how to support a loved one who is feeling hypomanic. So before getting started, I'm going to go ahead and set the scene for y'all. And the specific perspective that I will be covering is what I need as somebody who has bipolar disorder and experiences hypomania from my romantic partner. Now, that's not to say that some of these things can't be used for a family member or a friend or a colleague, but I don't live with family members, I don't live with friends, and I don't live with colleagues. I live with my partner, my romantic partner. And so a lot of what I'm going to discuss It can be used in a bunch of different relationship scenarios. I just wanted to point out that I'm going to be referring to my partner Monish a lot because he is the person that I am around the most who works with me through all of my hypomania and all of my depression and just everything. We do everything together in life. And so if you are listening because you have a family member or a roommate or a friend who has bipolar disorder, please know that you can take these different scenarios I'm going to talk about and use them and tweak them for your specific situation, okay? So, first and foremost, the number one thing needed in any type of successful relationship, whether that be romantic or familiar or with friends, is communication. Oh my God. Y'all, I just want to pause real quick though and say that I used to suck at communicating effectively with people because I wasn't taught how to communicate with people in my household growing up. I wasn't. So we just hid everything. We didn't talk about things. It was just you moved on and that's what you did. No apologies, no amends. You act like nothing happened. Boom. Not a healthy way to go through life. Not at all. So thankfully, I had a really intense and terrifying boss in the past who threatened to fire me on multiple different occasions due to lack of communication. Therefore, I got my act together and learned not only the importance of communication, but how to do so. And I really, truly hope nobody else has to go through that because that was not fun. Oh my God, that sucked so bad. And I kind of chuckled because I look back and I'm like, it was very, very toxic environment that I was working in. But there was a bright side to it, is I came out stronger and I came out learning how to communicate effectively. And so real quick, guys, for shits and giggles, I just want to read you the definition of communication straight from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. So they define it as a process by which information is exchanged between individuals through a common system of symbols, signs, or behavior. So on that, guys, what makes my relationship with Monish so successful is the fact that we communicate everything with each other. Everything. Sometimes things that might be considered too much information or TMI. But hey, in my opinion, it's better to have too much detail than not enough in our household. And Monish agrees. So we definitely overshare with each other, but that's the kind of relationship that he and I have. So let's move forward a little bit and talk about what does communication have to do with supporting someone who is feeling hypomanic. Let's get more specific and why we're here today. So I'm really glad you asked, friend. I'm so glad you asked. So first of all, if you and your loved one don't already have a great line of communication between the two of you, the person who is diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder might have a pretty difficult time articulating to you what they are going through, especially if you are not in the mindset to try to understand from their point of view. So guys, here's the deal. Point blank, those of us with bipolar disorder often feel very misunderstood by those around us enough as it is. Not to mention the fact that sometimes we can't even understand what exactly is happening to us and why we are feeling like we do in the middle of any type of episode, but I think most specifically with hypomania. There's been so many times where I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't know what's going on. And then on top of that, to feel misunderstood by the person in the room with me, it just makes everything worse. It's confusion, it's frustration, it's not being able to articulate what I feel. And the other person sitting there, if they're asking me constantly, that's going to agitate me and that's going to bring out the irritation of hypomania. Which, if you haven't tuned in to season 3, episode 13, you need to, so you can fully understand hypomania before you dive in trying to help somebody while they're in the midst of it, okay? But y'all, to be quite frank, if I don't feel comfortable enough with the person in the room to tell them things when I'm feeling balanced, I am most definitely not going to want to try to tell them how I'm feeling when I'm feeling hypomanic. So, to simplify that a little bit, if I can't be open and honest with you when I'm feeling average, when I'm feeling leveled out, when I'm not hypomanic or depressed, when I'm feeling pretty even, pretty good overall. If I'm feeling like that and I can't be honest with you with how I'm feeling or with how things are going or with how things are in my life, I sure as hell am not going to be able to be honest with you when I'm feeling hypomanic or when I'm feeling depressed. So guys, therefore, if you are not communicating effectively with your loved one on a daily basis with day-to-day, everyday things, you need to start there. Communication is the starting point of everything. And if that's not there, then all of the other things that I'm going to list out are going to be so much more difficult. So once again, I'm going to drill this motherfucking shit into your head that you got to work on communication. Please, for the sake of yourself and your loved one, start small, start with daily things, and go from there. Trust me from experience, Monish and I went through almost an entire year of having to learn how to properly communicate with each other. And we're not perfect, and we never will be. And we sometimes still struggle, but we are a hell of a lot better and stronger and within our relationship with each other now because we can communicate effectively. All right, so now that we've covered the basic beginnings, let's take some time to review a few additional ways in which you can be supportive to your partner, your loved one, your family member, your friend, etc., when they are swept up in the midst of a hypomanic episode. So I found a good chunk of the following on mind.org in an article titled Hypomania and Mania, How Can Friends and Family Help? So the first thing is to get curious. And what I mean by this is to ask questions. So here is what I recommend based on my personal experience with educating Monish, my lovely partner, on bipolar 2 disorder. So if you are the person who does not have bipolar disorder, I recommend to find time when your loved one is feeling balanced and feeling mentally stable to ask them questions about what hypomania is like for them. So before I go in further about that, I just want to say that I'm very grateful for a curious partner who tends to ask just as many questions as I do, which I love, because when he began asking me questions about my experiences with bipolar disorder, it made me stop and truly think, okay, what does that feel like for me? What does hypomania feel like for me? And guys, he's done this with way more than just hypomania. So if you're listening and you have a partner or a loved one or friend who has bipolar disorder, I encourage you to get curious and ask them questions about their personal experiences with the disorder to help you better understand from their perspective. Because you can listen to my perspective all day long, but my perspective is going to be different from your loved one's perspective. Now, I might have a more similar perspective to theirs, especially in contrast to yours, but it's always best to hear it straight from the horse's mouth and ask the person that you are dealing with specifically what it's like for them. And guys, there's even been times where I've had to sit there and tell Monish, I'm going to have to think about this question a little bit more before I can give you an answer because I needed time to rack my own brain. Which is great for me because then it helps me to do some soul searching so I can better understand myself at the same damn time. It's a win-win for both of us. He's getting information and I'm further self-discovering, which is so, so important for those of us with mental health struggles, especially with bipolar disorder. We've got to take time to think back and see how things occur. Patterns repeat themselves. Especially with bipolar disorder, there's the ups and the downs, and they tend to have a pattern. And if you take time to journal about it and then go back and look later, you'll see. Okay, so let's move on because I could just keep jabbering all day, but we really got to stay on topic. So the next one is to know the signs. So I covered this one a little bit in the last episode, so therefore I will briefly review this with you now. But you can find the resource in which I located all of this information from inside the show notes. And the article that I'm going to read from is titled 10 Signs of Hypomania, which the URL for that is www.nextstep.doctor. Again, you'll find that in the show notes. And they list the following as 10 signs of hypomania. Extreme talkativeness. Examples of this include not being able to listen to others or not allowing others to talk because they're talking very rapidly or loudly, or constantly jumping from one topic to the next. Number 2, elation or giddiness. In other words, extreme happiness for seemingly no reason. Number 3 is irritability. Number 4 is a decreased need for sleep. Number 5 is racing thoughts. And a little side note to this one, guys, is that when I personally have racing thoughts, I also tend to become very fidgety, whereas I'm not usually a fidgety person. So that can also be a possible sign for your loved one as well. Monish actually pointed that out to me. He pointed out to me one time when I was being fidgety, he asked how I was feeling, and I was able to articulate that I was having racing thoughts. And at that point, he looked at me and said, okay, I thought that was the case because you were fidgeting a lot and you don't normally do that. So that was honestly a really beautiful moment, y'all, because that was a time where Monish was able to recognize I was having racing thoughts before I was even able to recognize that within myself. So if that is not enough for you to keep listening to this episode, I don't know what else is. But guys, that's why these things are important for you as someone who is supporting someone with bipolar disorder. It's important for you to hear these things because he knew the signs. He recognized it in me before I recognized it in me. And that will happen again in the future. I know it will. That's the thing with bipolar disorder. Sometimes I don't even realize what's happening until somebody else brings me back to reality and points it out for me. Okay, number 6, grandiosity, which I hope I pronounced that right. But this is often described as a larger-than-life feeling that can include feeling invincible, superior, or invulnerable. Number 7, high energy, which I do want to just elaborate and say higher than normal energy for those of us who are already high energy, like myself. Number 8 is distractibility. Number 9 is impulsivity. And number 10 is increased goal-directed activity. So please keep in mind that your partner or loved one may already experience or engage in these type of behaviors on a regular basis. So it is important to pay more attention to their behaviors, and especially if you notice that they're increasing in intensity, in quantity, and whatever. So an example for that, guys, is that I'm always fucking talkative. Always. I'm always high energy unless I am depressed or unless my 6 hours of sleep was interrupted and I didn't sleep well. And I am more often than not engaging in goal-directed activities on a daily fucking basis. So for my partner, it is super important that he understands that these traits are already a part of my personality, but that he needs to pay attention if he begins to notice a sudden increase in any of these, especially if they're coupled with any of the other 10 signs that we talked about. So if I become so talkative that he cannot get a word in, and I'm saying things that sound like I might be feeling larger than life or superior than others, and I'm being really distracted, right there, he'll know, like, okay, hold up. Like, she's definitely experiencing hypomania, or she might be. I need to sit down, bring her to reality, and let's get curious. Let's ask her questions, and we'll go from there. Also, let me be very clear. Please do not assume that your loved one is experiencing hypomania based on your opinions of their behaviors. Don't assume shit. When you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. Remember that. I have heard that so many times growing up, and I will never forget that. When you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. Don't assume. Go back to number 1 and get curious, or number 2, whatever. Get curious and ask questions. Ask them how they are feeling. Ask. The next thing that you can do is to discuss challenging behaviors and set boundaries with this person if necessary. Oh, fuck. And I say, oh, fuck, because Monish and I have definitely sat down and done this. And I did not enjoy this because I was held accountable for my shitty actions and behaviors. And I say shitty because it's true. I have engaged in some shitty behaviors that I am not proud of. Now, this is not an excuse whatsoever, but I have pointed out to Monish that a lot of my shitty behaviors were unfortunately learned behaviors from my family of origin, some of which have been triggered and sprung on as part of my bipolar disorder. And so when I made him aware of this, again, not as an excuse, but just so that he could understand why I behave certain ways, he now can be a lot more graceful towards me. And he knows that I'm working on unlearning these shitty behaviors and I'm learning to replace them with better ones. But also that he can hold me accountable, but give me a little grace while doing so. To point out when I'm doing something that is not okay, that's not nice, that's whatever, point that out so I can stop and recognize and work on trying to fix those behaviors so that they don't keep occurring. So here's a little boundary that he has set in order to protect his mental health. So sometimes when I'm feeling super hypomanic, I will get really, really irritable. And when this occurs, the smallest of things could set me off. Like Monish could be doing something that he thinks is going to be helpful for me, but instead, I will just explode out of irritation that came with the hypomania. And these explosions will often, unfortunately, result in yelling, which, oh my God, is a terrible learned behavior that came from my family of origin. We used to yell and scream at each other all the time, and Monish does not like this. And I 100% understand him, and I agree with him that I should not be yelling, that that's not okay. So what's this boundary, you ask? This boundary is that he will not speak to me if I'm yelling, which is completely fair and rational of him. Completely. And so he'll often just leave the room just to get away from me yelling. And doing that protects him, which is necessary in order for us to be able to work through things like this. And y'all, when he leaves the room and when he sets this boundary, it shows me that I cannot yell at him because he will walk away. And if I want to talk to him, then I need to chill the fuck out and stop yelling. But just to point out, guys, that these things take time. He and I are still working through this 2.5 years into our relationship. It's something we're still working on. Have I gotten better? Fuck yeah, I have gotten better. I'm going to give myself a little pat on the back because I have. Do I still need to work on it? Abso-fucking-lutely, yes. So this is something where it's going to be a lot of trial and error, and that's why I'm just reminding to give grace. If the person is trying, that's all you can ask of them, is to give them some grace and keep working through, and things will get better over time. So guys, I want to end this episode today by thanking anybody who is listening for the intent of educating themselves on how to best support their partner, their family member, their friend, whoever that they know that has bipolar disorder. Y'all, it truly warms my heart when I have people come to me for help understanding their loved one, because to me, that says that you care so deeply for this person, so deeply. And while I didn't have this growing up, I do have this now in my partner Monish. So I can say from experience that you are doing such a wonderful thing for your loved one that they most likely will deeply appreciate. So kudos to you. Kudos to you for going out there and trying to understand and trying to do better. Because again, I didn't have that growing up, but I have it now, and it means so much to me that Monish does so much. He does so much. I'm totally going to tear up. He does so much to try to understand me and try to support me and try to help me and to be there for me. And it means the world to me, and I will never be able to thank him enough for all that he's done and all that he will continue to do throughout our relationship together. So it means a lot to the person that they might not show it. It might take them time to show it to you, but just know that you are amazing. And if you don't get the thank you right away, I'm giving you the thank you. So thank you and kudos to you for being here. So be sure to check out the show notes to this episode so you can find links to the articles that I mentioned, as well as some other resources. But once again, thank you for putting in the effort to help make this world a better place for everyone. It's time for What a Weirdo! Okay, y'all. So this segment is here as a way for us to normalize weird habits that we all have but don't necessarily talk about. And it's a way to create some wholesome laughter at the end of each episode, as sometimes we discuss some very difficult topics. So y'all, we all have some weird habits, and my hope is that you'll be able to say, hey, me too, when listening to the segment, and that it will help you to feel less alone. So if you've been tuning into the show regularly, you've likely heard all of my weirdo habits. So now it's time to send in yours. And today we have another anonymous submission from the website, and that one reads, when I'm feeling super happy, I often can't contain the emotion and I feel the need to scream. So that's what I do. I scream happy screams. Okay, I'm smiling really big because I don't scream when I'm super happy, but I do cry when I'm super happy. Oh my God, I'm that weirdo who cries happy tears and sometimes uncontrollably, and it's ridiculous. But I get it. Sometimes I feel so happy I can't contain it, and even though I don't scream, I cry. So I find some other kind of release. So I love that you shared this. This is super cute. And this is something that I do feel I just feel from this. And I love it. So thank you, Anonymous, for sending this in. So what weirdo habits do you have? Send your anonymous submissions by heading on over to whatisheybales.com/whataweirdo. That's what is HEYBAILSdoing.com/whataweirdo. You can also send in your submission directly to my DMs on Instagram at distress2joyful_Baileysway, or send me an email at whatisheybales.doing@gmail.com. So I'm happy to give you a shout out if you want me to shout you out, if you've got a cute one like this one from today. All right, so next episode, I'm going to speak directly from the heart on how my bipolar disorder will often cause me to speak aggressively to other people, whether I know these other people or not, for seemingly no reason. So guys, this is something that I've struggled with my entire life, as it's really difficult for me to control. While at the same time, people do not understand that my aggression has nothing to do with them whatsoever. So I guarantee you that somebody has probably acted this way, as in being aggressive towards you for what feels like no fucking reason, at least once in your life. I'm sure at least once in your life it's happened to you. So this will be a very valuable episode for you to tune into because I finally, for the first time in my life, have the language to be able to verbalize what is going on. And it's taken me years to nail it down and figure it out. So don't miss out. But thank you for tuning into the show. Be sure to follow on Instagram at distress2joyful_Bailey's Way. And head on over to the website, whatishaybellsdoing.com/the podcast to check out the show notes from today's episode. If you enjoy this podcast, help spread the word by leaving a rating or review. Guys, the more reviews I get on Apple Podcast, the better the ending episode of this year where I shout you all out will be. So be sure to do that because I need more reviews from you so I can shout you out. So help me help you. Lastly, don't forget to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with all of the new episode releases. But until next time, take it easy, stay grateful, and be joyful. Bye!